right? So I think we're live. All right. So, sorry, welcome everyone. Thank you for signing up for this webinar. Oops, I think there's like there you go. Sorry, we're live, so that's okay. I just turned off my audio on the other side. So again, welcome everyone. Thank you for being here today. We're starting with episode 1 of the briefings, and basically this is a series of webinar episodes that we're going to be creating along with our partners to en route basically to our October events in Puerto Rico and San Juan, Puerto Rico. And today I'm really excited to have Alan Taveras from Invest Puerto Rico. He's the Business Development Director at Invest Puerto Rico. So like I mentioned, this is a series of 5 episodes. One Destination is a monthly webinar hosted by us, Angeles investors, and then again with our partnership with our different ecosystem partners that we're bringing to the table. First episode with Invest Puerto Rico, second episode will be with Puerto Rican founders, and so on and so forth. The idea is to bring different type of conversations to the table, start basically educating the public and the audience on investing in Puerto Rico and what that means, and then have a also event right at the end in October. So I wanted to first basically just drop these numbers here, Alan, and these are just sort of generic numbers, right, that a lot of people see around all the time, right? We represent 20% of the population as Latinos. Less than 2% of that, right, of venture capital is allocated for Latinos in the U.S. There's 6.1 million Boricuas in the diaspora. And that is in comparison to the 3 million. And I believe that number actually recently changed based on the latest census. So you can see the difference, right, how slowly throughout the years we have been sort of, the balance have moved where we have now a lot more, right, Puerto Ricans in diaspora than we had maybe 10, 15 years ago. We have about 500 plus active startups in the island. In 2022, the startup community raised about $520 million. And that has been since 2024, 2025, a raise of 348% on VC funding, which is, it tells you a good story. And we have, a bunch of different, right, accelerators and programs around the island that help with these efforts. So what the current looks like, right, for an investor, and this is why we're bringing Invest Puerto Rico into the conversation. I'd love to, Alan, to go over, right, of course, I know you have a presentation to do and talk to our audience about, the pretty cool things about investing in Puerto Rico and the why, right? And just some of the questions, right, that we'll be asking to Alan related to, again, the tech ecosystem, Act 60 for investors, and everything in between. So for the audience that's watching this, drop your questions on the chat, whether you're on YouTube, LinkedIn, X, or right here on Riverside. Drop your comments and your questions in the chat, and at the end, we'll definitely go over them. We'll have a Q&A session. So with that, I leave it to Alan. Let me stop sharing from my side, and you can go ahead and share from your side.
I'll start sharing. I wanted to say thank you, Angel, for the invitation for us at Invest Puerto Rico. It's an honor to be here and share what Puerto Rico has to offer. Personally, this is my passion. Before being at Invest Puerto Rico, I was a founder, one of the first startups in Puerto Rico to raise capital from the mainland. And my comfort zone is presenting to investors, but hopefully what we can do here is present a clear picture of what Puerto Rico really has to offer. And for that, I think that the first step is to basically start talking about Invest Puerto Rico and what do we do. So Invest Puerto Rico is a nonprofit. That's important to always clarify, because even though we work together with the Puerto Rican government, especially the Department of Economic Development, we are a standalone organization, nonpartisan. We are a 501c3. We were created in 2017. Our mission to promote Puerto Rico as a competitive investment jurisdiction And basically, my job is to attract new businesses and capital to the island. I focus on the tech and professional services sector, but I have colleagues that work defense, aerospace, pharma, advanced manufacturing, and all those strategic sectors that Puerto Rico looks to bring to the island. Uh, a little bit of the services we provide. I always like to explain that I'm like a concierge, but more than just bring you what you need, I connect you to the stakeholders in the island. The first service is data. So we have a robust research and strategy team in-house that is currently looking and updating data pools of different industry sectors, from workforce availability to what's currently happening in tech, in pharma, and all the sectors that move the needle in Puerto Rico. When I'm working with a company, if they ask for a specific RFQ, or they basically are looking for information regarding average payrolls, we can help you and we develop reports for you. The best investment decisions are with the freshest data, and we have that in Invest Puerto Rico. We also help once the company are decided to come to the market and expand. I take them personally to see the different options in terms of real estate. And it is from a small co-working space for a startup to a industrial park to a commercial warehouse. Anything that you need for your company, we connect you with the public and the private portfolios in terms of real estate, and we will take you to see those properties. For me, Puerto Rico is the mecca of talent, and I am seeing this firsthand. I see the talent. I see companies that come to Puerto Rico and hire to take our engineers back to the mainland. But I'm seeing a lot of that talent stay here in the island. So something that we do at Invest is, once your plan is concrete, you know the specific jobs you want to create, you share those job descriptions with me, and me and my team will help you tap into the different talent pools throughout Puerto Rico. And that is universities, companies like Holberton School that are graduating advanced tech talent, but also existing talent working at companies. We connect you with service providers that will find the right talent for you. And not only in the island, we work really close with El Combac. El Combac is this database of around 4,000 resumes of Puerto Ricans living in the mainland. Sometimes when we have an opportunity and we don't find it here in Puerto Rico, we tap that database because we know Puerto Ricans in the mainland want to come back, and our job is to create those job opportunities. We also open the doors for investors and companies. I always say, I'm not your VD guy. I won't sell for you. You're the best one for that job, but I will open the doors in the public, in the private, and in the academia sectors. And if you come referred by Invest Puerto Rico, doors open here in the island. And also through our platform Impeller, we showcase different investment opportunities that are currently in the island to investors that are looking to deploy capital in Puerto Rico. I like this slide because there's a lot of misconception about Puerto Rico. We are an island in the Caribbean, but we are really different from our neighbors. If you see our economy, our GDP, you will see that almost half of it is manufacturing. And when you take a deeper dive into those subsectors, pharmaceutical, medical devices, electrical equipment are what really makes our economy move, and our numbers trigger. If you see our exports value, close to $60 billion from that manufacturing base is what we are exporting. Our GDP per capita is 35K. So Puerto Rico, even though tourism is growing and you might see in the news, Bad Bunny, the residency, we still a really advanced and sophisticated economy that is focused on advanced manufacturing. Why Puerto Rico? And I think that snapshot of our economy, it starts telling the story that Puerto Rico is the hub where tech entrepreneurs and pioneers can create and accelerate their growth. And we're seeing that across the sector. And I like this slide because it represents a journey of the Puerto Rican tech ecosystem. I was part of the growth of this ecosystem, but it really started around 2009, where programs like Guayacan started to build a robust pipeline of idea to execution. But now, if we fast forward, we're seeing a lot of movement recently from the blockchain and Web 3.0, but we have mature programs like Parallel 18, Bravo Family Open, the Rise of the Entrepreneurs through Bravo Foundation. So Puerto Rico currently the ecosystem has the right building blocks to support the growth of startups here in the island. And not only the startups and the rising innovation, but Puerto Rico has been the home for multinationals for the last 70 years. As I mentioned, pharma, medical device have a strong foothold here, but we're seeing some trends and some sectors that are growing. I always like to show the defense sector, and that is Collins Aerospace. We have players like Honeywell, Lufthansa. They are building from Puerto Rico, they are designing from Puerto Rico. And I think one of the best competitive advantages that the island has moving on forward is that currently the defense or the Department of War budget has exploded regarding new tech in terms of defense tech. And if you want to do business with the federal government, you have to do it in US soil with US citizens. And Puerto Rico brings that to the table aside from the talent. Let's go a little bit deeper into the value proposition. We have 8 different points that we always like to highlight. The first of all is Puerto Rico is USA. Anything that you manufacture, that's from code to pharma, you can stamp the Made in USA stamp in those products. So you're investing in a jurisdiction that brings confidence to the table. Second, the people. I think people is what spearheads the growth of Puerto Rico, highly bilingual and focused on STEM fields talent. The connection to the Americas, and I see a lot this in the tech sector, specific in fintech. Strategically, we're positioned between North America and South America, and our cultural Spanish language is a perfect bridge for the Latin market. So if you want to position your company to growth in both markets, in Puerto Rico, you're ripe to do it. The world logistics capabilities, obviously, everything that we manufacture here, we have to export. In terms of our air cargo capability, is second to none, and we ship throughout the entire world directly from Puerto Rico to Asia, to Europe, to the States, everywhere we're shipping pharma medical devices products. Obviously, tax benefits. I think that is really important for investors and entrepreneurs. We're gonna do a little deep dive there. That is the cherry on the top, but obviously the bottom line looks better when your company is in Puerto Rico. Access to partnerships, that thriving ecosystem that I mentioned, and obviously you're going to be living and working in the Caribbean paradise. So as I mentioned, Puerto Rico is US. We are a US territory. So all federal regulations apply in the island. Our currency is the dollar, and anything that you manufacture here can be labeled as made in USA. In terms of talent, we're currently graduating on an annual basis more than 18,000 graduates and more than 2,000 postgraduates in STEM fields. Puerto Rico is number 1 in the US graduating Hispanic engineers, and also number 1 in the US in terms of percentage of labor force working in STEM fields. If you want to understand the academia, Puerto Rico right now has more than 80 different post-secondary organizations in terms of universities. In terms of the US, the Puerto Rican University Recinto Mayagüez is in the western part of the island, the best engineering school is one of the top 20 engineering school in the entire U.S. and is the number one public university grading Hispanic engineers. We have also private universities that are innovating in terms of engineering. Universidad de Politécnica in San Juan is a great one. UPR in Rio Piedras is only institution in the island certified with a doctoral research intensive universities, and also another private universities, Ana Jiménez. So anything you have to look for talent, you have the public, but also the private academia sector constantly collaborating with the private sector, with the manufacturing base, to be able to start shipping out that pipeline of talent that the companies need. When we take a look at the workforce, it's important to understand that Puerto Ricans are bilingual. So strategically, when you hire a Puerto Rican, you're hiring someone that can work Hispanic markets, but also the mainland US. And when we start seeing at the average payroll, you're always going to be saving in Puerto Rico. It's going to be between 25 to 30% less than in the States, in the mainland. It depends what state, but if you look at these roles in the tech sector, data infrastructure engineering, you can get it here for 77K compared to north of 100 in any of the states. Full stack developers. So you're not only tapping into extremely focused talent in terms of technology, but also bilingual and more cost effective talent in Puerto Rico. As I mentioned, we are strategically positioned in the middle between the US and Canada, and also Latin America, but also Puerto Rico is the closest point towards Europe. So from Puerto Rico, you can basically tackle all the other jurisdictions, and we are connected with direct flights to all the major cities in the eastern coast of the United States, but also to countries like Colombia. We have direct flights to Medellin, to Bogota, to Madrid. We also have direct flights. So strategically, Puerto Rico is a place to be if you really want to start looking at the region. Now we're going to be talking about the cherry in the cake. So important to understand and to give context to why Puerto Rico has unique tax incentives is that Puerto Rico is a territory of the United States. It's not a state. So under the Internal Revenue Code 933, Puerto Rican source income is excluded from the US federal tax. That means that Puerto Rico has its own tax code. We call it Act 60. It was basically developed in 2019, and it looked to organize all the incentives and all the activities that Puerto Rico is trying to promote. That is export of goods and services, individual investors, finance and insurance, visitor economy, everything that has to do with tourism, manufacturing, agriculture, infrastructure and green energy, creative industries, and entrepreneurship. And if we want to really understand the power of Act 60, I always like to explain it as a capital stack. So the first layer of that capital stack is the preferential tax rates. That means more money in your pocket. So you're saving on federal tax, you're only paying 4% at a local corporate income tax, and 100% exemption in capital gains. Second layer to that capital stack are the tax credits. And for me, this is the hack and the mode for tech companies. So the government of Puerto Rico is looking to promote and to push the development of IP here in the island. And that is why we're giving up to 50% on your investments in R&D activities done in the island. You can get it in a tax credit. So tax credits in Puerto Rico are transferable and sellable. This means that you can sell them. There's currently a secondary market where you have firms that they specialize in buying and selling tax credits of R&D activities. So big companies are constantly buying these tax credits just to lower their tax burden. They go roughly 90 cents of a dollar. So for a company that just raised a Series A or Series B, or for an investor that is looking to maximize the potential of their portfolio, positioning in Puerto Rico your company and its R&D activity will actually extend your capital runway just by tapping into these tax incentives with the tax credit. Third layer on that capital stack is cash grants, our cash grants, sorry. So not only we are incentivize you with lower tax rates, is tax credits, cash grants are literally a check that the government will write to you depending on your investment. So they're going to take into consideration number of full-time employment created, how many jobs you create, the average payroll of those jobs, and how much you're spending on capex. We can get you up to 30% on your capex expenditures in machinery and equipment back as a reimbursement, and up to $7,000 per each full-time job created, depending on a 3 to 5 year period. That means the government is investing and is basically putting skin in the game for you to bring your company in Puerto Rico. The last layer is through the Workforce and Innovation and Opportunity Act, WIOA. That is a federal grant we receive every year for companies to tap and to subsidize part of the training costs for specialist trainings and matching funds for on-the-job training. So this is what really sets Puerto Rico outside of the mainland and other jurisdiction, is that not only we have the talent, we have the strategic placement, we are part of the US, but our own tax code will be the most efficient place to grow your company. I like to now explain how companies are leveraging this. The first example I always like to use is AWS. So AWS is not necessarily developing technology here in the island, but they have through Act 60, they have a support office here. Their team is roughly 23 people, and they basically have account executives, solution architects, partner managers, and support staff. They are servicing the region. Why? Because that small office is bilingual and highly skilled. So you can be servicing Jamaica, the US Virgin Islands, all the English speaking Caribbean, but also the Spanish speaking Caribbean and the other countries in the region with your team in Puerto Rico. And you don't have to duplicate just to have someone who speaks another language. So AWS is strategically positioned in Puerto Rico to service the entire region. And I think one of the best examples is Honeywell. So Honeywell is located in the western corridor in the island. That is where you're going to see the defense cluster, because they're really close to the engineering university I spoke to you earlier. So they started here just to leverage the fixed corporate tax rates, but now they're grown into a 40-person. They started with 40-person team. They are currently more than 800 employees here in the island. They are doing R&D, leveraging those R&D tax credits, and they have a big operation that is focused on the engineering and design. That defense cluster is currently the one who's hiring most engineers in Puerto Rico, because the industry has discovered the benefits of the R&D tax credits in the island. So you can see examples of companies in the tech space that they're bringing their support offices here in the island, their back office, but also companies that are innovating and are doing research and development here in Puerto Rico. And as I mentioned, just to close it and to open the Q&A, Puerto Rico has everything that makes sense for your business, but also for your lifestyle, and you can live and work in paradise. So thank you guys for seeing my presentation. I would love to open the discussion. Angel, you can start asking
Yeah.
questions if you want.
Yeah, definitely. I'll start asking questions myself, and maybe that prompts people to ask themselves. But that's basically, thank you for explaining all that, Alan. That's basically, your macro case, right? And it's a very powerful one for that matter. But now I want to get into, again, like real conversations and from your perspective as well. I love to hear certain things, right? So my first question is like, in your own words, Alan, why is it right now the most important moment in Puerto Rico's tech history, right? Why is not, or wasn't 5 years ago? Why is not 5 years from now? Why is it right now?
Yeah, I think right now the ecosystem is really mature. I'll give you my story. So uh, I participated in Parallel 18's second cohort. They are currently, I think, in their 12th cohort. At the beginning, I remember my cohort, we were like six companies from Puerto Rico out of 33. So we were a small percentage. Now that percentage has more local presence. And I
Mhm.
think that is the product of the iterations that local founders have with other international companies. We've seen ups and downs in the market here. A lot of lessons have been learned. But I think if you mix the tax benefits and now what we're seeing that is coming to the island is smart capital. The investors are really looking to interact with local companies. You have someone like Orlando Bravo, billionaire. Puerto Rico has its own program in Mayagüez to incubate companies. I think now we are at a mature stage. We have more sophisticated local founders. The outside capital and the outside influence has made us have the right mindset in terms of looking not at Puerto Rico as a market, but the world as the market. So I think we have the capital, we have the experience, the incentives are there. And you can see it with examples as Kiwi Credito, one of my favorite local companies. It's a small fintech serving the underbanked. They raised 80 million to do microloans to people that can have credit cards. So when you start seeing those type of rounds, Nauta is an AI company in the logistics space, 8 million round. Now the rounds are getting bigger. The investors are now looking at Puerto Rico. 8 years ago, you will only see funding rounds from local firms. Now you're seeing outside capital start to get curious about what's being built here in Puerto Rico. So I think it was something that it needed time to mature.
Okay. And what do you think, like, so based on that, right, is there any changes that you think that have happened, within the last year, 2 years, right? Like, when did this ecosystem really start to shine the way that you see it today?
Uh, it's funny because I think back, and for me it's been shining from day one. But I understand because now in the demo days you start seeing more international investors. But I think one catalyst point that really made everyone in Puerto Rico understand where we were is when the Endeavor office opened here. So the Endeavor network only caters high impact companies, and for them to have an office here in Puerto Rico and have founders from Puerto Rican background that are Endeavor entrepreneurs, it means you're in a new echelon in
Mhm.
terms of the venture and startup ecosystem stairs. So I think that is important, and also with the funding, and you showed this in your slides. Every year the rounds are getting bigger, and the ideas are getting bolder, and I think that is what we pursue as an ecosystem. You have a company like Rain, it's a fintech. They are a unicorn. So we can actually claim that Puerto Rico has its unicorn. and they are endeavor companies. But if you want me to synthesize it, I think with the opening of the endeavor office, that's before and after in terms of our ecosystem.
Yeah, that's pretty interesting, right? Because it's basically just the opening of something, right? That ignites and sparks a domino effect from then on, right? And that's probably what happened there with Endeavor. So this is another question, separate question from that. Pretend there's a founder in this room watching this right now. They're a pre-seed company building from New York, Chicago, Miami, wherever, but they're Puerto Ricans. They have Puerto Rican roots, right? What is it that Invest Puerto Rico can actually do for them? And again, this is not a Fortune 500 company. This is a small team of like 3 people.
And that personally for me are my best experiences working here at Invest Puerto Rico. I'm going to tell you the story of two companies that I've helped Puerto Ricans from the mainland, from the diaspora, come back. The first one is iTerra Solutions. So Jonathan Soto, ex-military, and I think you're going to have him on a future episode.
Mhm.
This guy is the Puerto Rican GI Joe in terms of cybersecurity. He was working at Microsoft in Virginia, really top level stuff. But his family started growing. He was gonna have a kid, and if you're Puerto Rican and you have any roots in the island, family is something that will always pull you. And he decided that he wanted to come back. We not only helped him connect with a lawyer for his entire process, but also connect him with Parallel 18 that he participated, and with the entire ecosystem. I took him to tech meetings here in Puerto Rico, and now he's part of a community. And
Mhm.
I think that aside from the 5 things I show you in the slide that we do, for me in the tech space, I take it personally. I saw the ecosystem grow. So I take founders specifically if they are from Puerto Rico to connect with similar like individuals, to connect to the stakeholders. I take them to events because I think when the ecosystem starts building connections with people from all over the world that had experiences, and if you have roots from Puerto Rico, that is where the magic happens.
Mhm.
So we help you soft land here, from connecting to a real estate broker for you to purchase a house, to you meeting your CTO in a tech meetup.
Yeah, definitely. And thank you for sharing that because I feel that a lot of people right in this room probably don't even see these stories right happening. A lot of these stories are sort of hidden, right? And I feel that that's one of the main things that we also have to work on, right? How do we showcase these opportunities? How do we present these opportunities in front of investors, right? Whether it's for actually actual investment or not, right? The idea is to expose, the idea is to provide support, right? Mentorship, resources, and all these different things, right? That I know that Puerto Rican ecosystem is working on right now. There's different players working hard on these things, but there's little amount of players, right? And I hope that more and more people, right, start doing different things, right, to help. uh, right now everyone's doing their part, which is great, and that's definitely the start, and you can see it across the years, right? The numbers don't lie. So the ecosystem is growing, right? But in terms of the Act 60 itself, right, and this gets talked a lot around, like people, they hear Act 60, they hear tax haven, right? And a lot of them don't necessarily understand, and you explained that in detail earlier. um, but there's an entrepreneurship category, right, that most founders and investors don't know about. Can you break that down for our audience?
Yeah, and I'm gonna go ahead and explain the broader context of Act 60. So Act 60 is basically a code that organized different incentives that have been around for years and decades. When people think Act 60 and people think billionaires, tax haven, first of all Act 60, except individual investor, that is the benefit on your passive income, everything applies for Puerto Rican companies. My company had Act 60 decree, and we exported Puerto Rican products to the mainland. And I lived here and I was raised here. And if you see the decrees, the vast majority of the decrees are from local companies. So what we do at Invest and where we focus is in the corporate side, not in the individual investor. So as you mentioned, it has different chapters. You have the exports, service, and products. You have manufacturing. Entrepreneurship is one. So entrepreneurship, aside from the overall benefits that I show you, it also applies to young entrepreneurs. So if you have less than 35, you can apply for a decree as a young entrepreneur, and you're gonna get even more tax breaks on your first revenue. I believe is up to 500K. But it basically helps Puerto Ricans understand and helps them venture out. I think something that I'm seeing a lot is a lot of young entrepreneurs that are leveraging this decree. And that is something that I wasn't seeing when I started out. In Puerto Rico, because of our economy, either you went to a pharmaceutical plant to work or you went to a big corporation. But now with this decrease, you're seeing kids that open up their sneaker e-commerce shop, and with this decree they have zero tax for a year or so while their sales grow. And I think that is a really good benefit in terms of promoting entrepreneurship within Puerto Rico. I think that young entrepreneur decree is specially designed for Puerto Ricans to have a jump start in terms of their companies.
I love it. Yeah, and that it's that early stage support, right? That it's very well needed, and it's not just Puerto Rico, right? The early stage suffers in pretty much every country, for that matter, right? Everyone wants the best deals, so the early stage sort of get overseen, right? A little bit, and not many people are trying to build that. And I know NPR, the early stage ecosystem, that pre-seed ecosystem, I feel like it needs to grow and solidify a little bit more, right? So that
Yeah, I
you're
agree.
yeah.
It's a numbers game. You need
Hmm.
100 new companies.
Right.
Most of them are gonna fail, but once you start building volume, you
Hmm.
start seeing the outliers.
Hmm.
So for me now at this position at IPR, I have a different vision than when I was a founder.
Hmm.
Now I see a more macro and strategic way that the ecosystem is growing. And what you need is to put more kids in that pipeline to start building companies that start thinking they're going to fail, they're going to learn, and they're going to do it all over again.
I love it. Yeah, definitely, definitely. And so, to with that in mind, right, and having again that early stage example company in mind, now putting that against an investor lens, right, for any angel investor watching this, or a microphone, or any emerging fund watching this right now, what is the most, in your own opinion, what is the single most underappreciated investment thesis about Puerto Rico that sophisticated U.S. capital you think is missing?
I think people haven't understood clearly, and I know this is an awareness play, and this is something I always start the conversation, is
Hmm.
the R&D tax credits. And I've helped local companies when they're building their pitch deck to put a slide talking about how they're going to maximize the investor capital. But if you're looking to deploy capital, or you already have a portfolio of companies that are heavily invested in R&D, why wouldn't you want those companies to have 40% back as cash, because they have the 50% tax credits and they just sell them? So they basically generating cash out of their investment that they can reinvest, and you create this R&D virtuous cycle. So any type of investor should start looking at their portfolio companies and their investment in R&D, and start understanding that you can actually extend your dollars if you just move that operation to Puerto Rico.
Okay, definitely. And do you think that, like, if this was the case, right, and again, we have now both sides, the early stage startup and the investor side, right? Why do you think that the early stage arena, for example, and those founders still sort of, I guess, complain, if you want to use that word, about not having access to capital, right? And there's plenty of capital out there, right?
Yeah. When I was a founder, I used to complain a lot about the capital. We actually had the opportunity that we raised money out of a venture firm from El Paso, Texas, that Parallel 18 brought in a demo day, and that actually started building momentum, because if someone from the states invested in these guys, then everyone should be looking at these guys. I think I think it's part of the founder mentality. Founders are should be always racing, and in Puerto Rico, I think you have your traditional places where founders look capital. That is Paralating Ventures. There are not a lot of local venture capital. Most of the capital firms here are PE, private equity. I think we're seeing now a lot of US sophisticated investors or people that have made exits. They've moved to Puerto Rico to leverage the exemption in capital gains. And now they're starting to go to these meetups, go to the demo days, start seeing the what Puerto Rico offers in terms of investment opportunities. But I think that is something that is inherent in every founder. Every founder wants capital, and maybe what I see Puerto Rico is moving, and what is going to happen is that the money here will start being more strict in terms of the potential of your idea. Sometimes I see local companies focusing on the Puerto Rican market. And if I'm a US investor, I'm more comfortable of seeing $1 million in terms of revenue, big companies that are selling to thousands and millions of customers. So I think in order for the capital to have a more relaxed flow in the island, it's now the ball is now in the court of the founders. You have to start thinking regional or internationally. You can go to a US venture capital firm talking about your numbers in Puerto Rico. That's not going to mean anything. So, but I think that's going to happen naturally, because every time you're going to pitch, and I've seen pitches here to investors that are in the island, and they're not impressed necessarily with some companies, and that is making founders think more broadly.
Exactly. Yeah, I was going to say that I think the competition itself, right, will drive a lot more of the out of the box thinking, and that progressive thinking, right? And as people, as you mentioned before, as people start failing, right, and these founders and start failing, that's when things can actually kickstart from there. So I have personally one last question, and then we'll open it up to the Q&A, the last 10 minutes of the episode here. And this question is a little different because I want to basically tackle the cultural aspect of things, right? So we're Latinos. We like you said, we speak English, we speak Spanish, right? And we have our own very cultural roots that are pretty big, right? And now the world knows it, right? For that matter, we put that out there for sure. And that's one of the things that I think Puerto Rico has always been great at, right? We've always been great at showcasing our culture and what we look like and what we do. Now, people talk about the tax incentive. They talk about the workforce, the talent, right? But I want to ask you, you like something more personal, right? And from your own perspective, right? What does it mean to you, culturally speaking, for a Boricua founder to build from the island instead of leaving, right? What do you think this represents for Puerto Rico's future?
I think as Latinos, we're really proud. Uh, we want to be that now second unicorn from Puerto Rico. We want to build here. We want to create opportunities for our friends that left the island to come back. So I think that's what it means. Just putting your grain of salt in order to help Puerto Rico on its upward trajectory. And going back to the last question, but also it touches on this one. If we think outside of tech and let's say that culture aspect of industry,
Hmm.
let's think about what Bad Bunny and those kids are doing. For me, Rimas is my favorite startup in Puerto Rico, and they have conquered the entire world. They
Hmm.
thought internationally, they innovated, they continue to do so. So for me, in the tech space, I will start to see that as a blueprint. Why? And not only now Bad Bunny, but Fania All Star in the 70s and in the 80s. In terms of culture, we've been the best in every generation. Now we're starting to see that resonates within the tech founder space. So
Hmm.
I think there's a lot to learn from culture when we're building companies. But going back, I think we're proud of being Puerto Rican. We're proud of creating and showing our talent to the world. And if we can do something that creates opportunities for other founders to come back, that's the story, man.
Awesome. I love it. I love it, Alan. Thank you for that. Let's open it up here for questions. And I have a first question here. Can you talk about the situation of family business in Puerto Rico?
Yeah. So I I think it's the same in the state. Well, I would say it's even more intense when we start seeing family business that they don't have a succession plan.
Hmm.
A lot of these businesses and the founders, they made a lot of cash. They send their kids to school, or maybe the kids are in the states. They don't want to come back. So what I'm seeing right now is a lot of cash flow positive brick and mortar business that in the next 10 years they will need to see a transition. I'm seeing a lot of search funds. I'm seeing a lot of
Hmm.
smaller private equity firms coming here and knocking. We want to buy businesses. We want to run businesses. Where
Hmm.
I see that we don't have that flywheel set in motion is the operating side of it.
Okay.
So I know 100 businesses that will need to sell in the next 5 years or 10 years, but I don't know 100 operators that instead of going the tech sexy route, they want to go and run a business that makes a lot of money, but it's not sexy in terms of tech.
Hmm.
So regarding that, I think succession is something that but that resonates in the states. You have that wealth transfer from the baby boomers to the millennials, so it's going to be interesting what's going to be happening with those businesses.
Yeah, it's what they call like boring businesses, right?
Yeah,
The word itself, right,
boring
says it.
businesses make a lot of money, man.
They do, right, right, right. They do, even though they're boring, right? All right. Let's get another question from the audience here. All right. So, what advantages might a film and TV producer from outside Puerto Rico have if they wanted to develop Puerto Rico inspired content for a global audience? Is it only the tax incentives?
This is really interesting. So Puerto Rico used to have tax credits that we still have for the film industry. You used to see big pictures come here, and they will roll and use local talent, and they move. The thing is that when I say we, the the government started to make research on it, and the ROI when compared to other industries was not there, especially because
Mm.
a film comes here, they roll for 3 6 months, and then they leave. But what I'm seeing, and I've been working with a couple of clients, is that instead of thinking Puerto Rico as a place where you come, shoot, and leave, start building studios in Puerto Rico. Why? Because the studio in Puerto Rico can leverage Act 60 export services, the tax
Yes.
credits. If you're doing anything in terms of R&D, they don't have a cap like the film commission tax credits have. So it's just hacking the model. But currently, the tax credits for the film industry, they do have a cap, and the fiscal oversight board has lowered that amount. So
Mhm.
we seen a slowdown in terms of that industry, but it's because people want to replicate the model. I
Mhm.
always tell my clients, don't come here for the tax credits in terms of the film. Come here, build your studio, and export from here.
Definitely, definitely. All right. Let's grab one more question here, or maybe we have time for a couple more. Do you have any insights into the staffing industry on the island?
Yeah, I actually do. One of the service providers I use the most are staffing companies. So, as I mentioned, we help in the entire process from understanding the average payrolls in San Juan, the western part
Mhm.
of the island, analyzing the availability of that talent. We have someone in house that is the workforce experts. But once you are in the hiring phase, we connect you to several companies. Right now, what I'm seeing is a lot of movement because we're bringing a lot of companies.
Mhm.
So you have people trying to pull Puerto Ricans from the mainland, contacting and developing new ways of collaborating with universities, people that are in current roles. They're looking to move to a more competitive payroll. So I think right now Puerto Rico is a really dynamic in terms of workforce, and there's a lot of consultants and established companies that fill those gaps. So if anyone, maybe Angel, you can connect me to the person who sent that question, and I can put them in contact with any of the companies, so they can have a one-on-one conversation.
Definitely, sounds great. Yeah, and if I mean the person that asked the question is definitely listening to this, so reach out to me on LinkedIn.
I'm also gonna put my email in the
Okay,
chat. So anyone who wants to continue this conversation, feel free to send an email.
awesome, perfect. Thank you, Alan. Thank you for that. And like I said, the person watching this, if you wanna, reach out to Alan or connect with him on LinkedIn, connect with me as well, and we'll get, we'll keep the conversations going. Um, before we close out, and again, Alan, thank you so much. And I want to maybe leave another minute or two for you, like if there's anything else that you want to say. What do you what would you tell to the next Puerto Rican founder, right, that wants to build something, whether they're in the island right now or they're off the island? What would you tell them?
For the ones in the island, I would say go as big as you can, be as ambitious as you can. Puerto Rico is not the market where you make a dent in the world, but from Puerto Rico, you can build a company that can make a dent in the world. So think the world is your oyster. For founders outside of Puerto Rico, I would say Puerto Rico has everything you need. Uh, I understand that the message out there is more about culture, about tourism. It's more eye pleasing content.
Mhm.
But do your research. Contact Invest Puerto Rico. I don't charge for my services. This is something I do because I'm passionate. Because also my job is to promote Puerto Rico. But there is a place for companies here like Honeywell, Amgen, Lilly. If they're doing it from here, I don't think it's rocket science for you to understand that Puerto Rico is the place for you to grow. So come down, reach out, and we're more than happy to show you around.
Awesome. Thank you, Alan. Thank you for that. And before we close, three things. One, if you're a founder who has been thinking about Puerto Rico, reach out to Invest Puerto Rico directly. Reach out to Alan, send a message. You can, have the conversation. And their team, of course, is really busy with a lot of different things, but their resources are real. So I just put the link in the chat to Invest Puerto Rico, and Alan shared his email there. Number two, episode 2 is coming out soon. Episode 2 is basically focused on some of the Puerto Rico startups that have built their companies in PR and have been able to actually scale outside of the island and or attract outside capital opportunities. So be on the lookout for that on our community, on the newsletter, on socials, right? All that from Angeles Investors. And then number 3, everything we're building with these briefings basically leads to the October event, the Angeles Puerto Rico Forum in San Juan. Invest Puerto Rico is going to be there, and I can't wait for you guys to basically talk live there to our group of investors and everyone invited, and every founder and every investor, right, that have been following us so far, what we've been trying to do with Puerto Rico and everything that's coming, forward. If you want to be in that room, follow us, keep in touch, right? And this is basically, we're just getting started, right? This is the very first episode of something greater that I hope, but ends in a very amazing event at the end. Our goal with this as Angeles Investors is basically to, one, start bringing that U.S. capital and support and connections, right? But more than anything else, we want to do everything we're doing for the founders, the startups, right? And whatever is actually works for them, right? They are the ones that need the help, and that's what we're trying to accomplish here, right? Of course, our group, Angeles Investors, right, is a big group of investors, professionals. We have everything between college graduates all the way to Fortune 500, board members in the group. It's a great, network to connect with, and I hope that we can bring this to the Puerto Rico ecosystem and be of great value for that matter. Thank you again, Alice. Alan, this was great. Everyone, Alan Taveras, he's the business development director at Invest Puerto Rico. Amazing founder with a great history, and right now, doing amazing things for Puerto Rico, and watching basically all of the founders back there, trying to work with everyone. So be lenient, be patient, right? And everything is in the works, and Alan is one of the main players doing that. So
Thank you, Angel, for what you're doing. Thank you for your great social media LinkedIn game. I love it. I'm a fan. But you're
thank you.
helping us in an awareness campaign so Puerto Rico can understand the benefits, so people can understand the benefits of Puerto Rico. Anyone who was here, my email is in the chat. Feel free to reach out. More than happy to help. Have a great rest of the afternoon. Take care.
Thank you,